I think we can get started. I should probably let you know. First of all, good morning and welcome and congratulations on your election to the Maine State Legislature. I'm Suzanne Gresser and I'm the Executive Director of the Legislative Council. The Executive Director's Office is one of the nonpartisan offices that staffs the legislature. And this morning, you're going to hear from some of the other offices that provide services to the legislature. During the first segment, the directors of the two offices that staff the committees, those two offices are the Office of Policy and Legal Analysis and the Office of Fiscal and Program Review. The directors of those two offices are going to talk to you a bit about committee staffing and the committee process. And then the manager of the Legislative Information Office is going to talk about information resources that are available. And as many of you have already heard, because I've said it a couple times, this is the first time we've ever presented a segment of the new member orientation remotely. So I have already apologized in advance for any hiccups. And there are just a few Zoom-related housekeeping matters, although I'm incredibly impressed with people's facility with Zoom. It far exceeds mine. Underneath your picture, you'll see, I think a lot of people have renamed themselves, so I don't even think it's going to be necessary to rename yourself. I think we talked about that earlier, and I don't know that I see anyone that I can't figure out who that is. You have the ability to mute and unmute yourself, and what we're asking is that everyone mute themselves unless they're addressing the meeting, and that way we can minimize the feedback and eliminate unintended noise. We welcome your questions, even the ones, and there may be many of them given these uncertain times. So even the ones that we don't yet have answers to, we absolutely welcome your questions, and you should not hesitate to ask. We do have a chat function, so if you would like to type your name and the question in the chat, we have someone, Mandy, thank you, who is keeping track of the questions. When we read your question and your name out loud, you can unmute yourself and discuss the question with us. All the questions that you have, I guarantee, are shared by others. So asking the questions will help every single one of the new members.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Somebody joined and they're in as what looks like Carter, C-A-R-T-R, representative or senator-elect. If you might rename yourself so that we can address you properly, that would be great. And also Representative Moriarty, I think we know that's you. We know that's you. So if you'd like to rename yourself, you can, just so that everybody else can put a face to a name.
And
this is Mickey Carmichael. The car trans. That's Mickey Carmichael. I will rename it.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And Representative, you don't need help renaming or anything? I would have.
Yeah, well, I don't know how to do it, no.
Exactly. I didn't either. There are, if you go to your square, at the top, if you put your cursor, you'll see at the top right-hand corner three dots, and rename, and then a box should open up, and then you should be able to enter whatever name you would like us to know you as. And it will help, especially with questions, so then we can call on the right person. Thank you. Thanks, Nick. Okay, I do think everyone else looks like, there's Steve's iPad. I don't know if we know.
That's Representative Moriarty.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to rename myself, so.
As long as we know that Steve's iPad is Representative Stephen Moriarty. I think we could be all set, but
I'll go
and
by
just
that.
okay. So,
Suzanne, can I ask one question?
sure, absolutely.
When someone is asking, my screen has 3 screens now with 3 different screens full of people. When the person asks a question, do they jump to the front screen or should we, is that how it works, Nick or Mandy? So
Say
if the
that again?
person, will the person who's asking a question jump to the live screen that anybody's in?
Not necessarily, no. That's why we ask if you have a question, we'd prefer that you use the chat function so that we can see who asked it. Mandy will be keeping an eye on that because it just makes it easier for us to manage it rather than trying to find, oh, somebody's 2 screens down is asking.
Okay, thank you.
And if you click on the chat function now, it opens up that window, so you'll see those questions as they come in.
Right.
It will break up your screen and you'll be able to see the chat.
And I'm sure everyone knows this, but the chat is at the bottom. So if you click on the chat, the thing that says chat on the bottom, it will open it up on the side for you, so you can see the chat as it evolves.
If you're on the phone though, definitely unmute yourself and speak up, and we will recognize you. Obviously, chatting on the phone is not quickly and easily. Oh, good.
Suzanne, do you want to know as each question comes in?
Um,
Do we want to stop do questions at the end of the
At
segment?
the end?
at the end of the presentation of each person's presentation, then we can do questions.
Okay. Yep.
Can I just say one other thing? The
Certainly.
person that asked about, can you see the person who's speaking? There's actually 2 different views, and probably most of us are in the gallery view where you can see everybody.
Yep.
But if you go up in the top right-hand corner, there's a thing that says view, and you can change that so that the speaker is the most prominent person that shows up.
Yes, that's correct. There is an option for speaker view and gallery view. And in that case, the person speaking will pop to the front. You're correct. Thank you very much.
I was just hoping to keep a smaller picture of myself, not a larger picture when I'm speaking. So that's
We were
why I
hoping
didn't
that
point
too,
that
Chris.
out.
Me too.
Me too, same.
Yeah. Nick, I just want to say one thing before we start, and you are recording this, yes?
I am recording this. Yep.
Excellent. So for everyone, this will be recorded and posted on the member resources page so that for members who were not able to participate, they will be able to glean the benefit of this segment, we'll call it. And if anything confused you or you want to go back and see what the answers were, you will be able to access it as well. So with that, I am going to introduce you to the directors of the 2 offices that provide committee staffing to the joint standing committees of the legislature. Danielle Fox is the director of the Office of Policy and Legal Analysis, and everyone calls it OPLA. And then Chris Nolan is the director of the Office of Fiscal and Program Review, and we just call that OFPR. So with that, Danielle.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome new members of the 130th Legislature. As Suzanne mentioned, my name is Danielle Fox, and today I'm going to speak to you about the important role of committee analysts in the legislature. Before I do that, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I have worked with the nonpartisan staff of the legislature for, I was just going to say it's going on 23 years, but it might be going on 24. Anyway, a really long time. I was barely walking when I started. And and I will, you'll get to know me once you're sworn in as the director of OPLA, so the Office of Policy and Legal Analysis. So during your time in the legislature, most of your work is going to be in committee. So you'll all be assigned to a policy committee, and that is where the majority of your work will happen when you're not on the House or the Senate floor. So you're going to spending a lot of time with committee. Each policy committee is assigned at least one committee analyst. So a member of nonpartisan staff. All committee analysts are nonpartisan analysts. Most of those analysts come from OPLA, from this office, although there are 2 analysts that work with Chris Nolan's office, the fiscal office, or OFPR. And those analysts are the ones that staff the taxation committee and the appropriations and financial affairs committee. The other policy committees, they're staffed by my office, OPLA. So as you know, I think most of you, that the primary function of committees is to consider and vote on bills or proposed legislation. And the 2 primary elements of doing this work are holding public hearings on legislation and then conducting work sessions on legislation. So those are the 2 basic elements of committee work when you're considering legislative proposals. So public hearings are a time when the public can come and speak to you and give you their views on a bill. You'll hear from lobbyists, you'll hear from agency people, different types of stakeholders. And that's mostly, that is the opportunity for you to listen. And analysts do about the same thing at that point. We're just listening to the testimony. Where what we do will be really visible to you is during committee work sessions. And committee work sessions are where you come to an understanding about what a bill does, and you deliberate and discuss and ultimately vote on a bill for consideration later by the House and by the Senate. And your committee analyst will provide you with information on the proposed legislation. Some committees receive upwards of 100 bills, so that would be a big job for you to be spending your time trying to understand all of those, and that's where we come into play. We summarize the legislation for you. We'll give you other information like how it fits into the broader context of the statute that it's amending, how it impacts the policy that the proposed legislation is attempting to amend, whether there would be any conflicts with statute, whether or not it aligns with another similar policy. There's lots of information that we can give you. We'll speak to you about whether there may be legal issues or constitutional issues, whether there could be some administrative concerns or just technical drafting issues with the legislation. So those are the things that we will do for you in a Zoom type of committee meeting like this. This is exactly how a committee analyst would look to you. She would be, or he would be giving you information about the legislation. They may screen share and show you these documents, but for almost every bill, you'll receive some sort of document summarizing the bill, highlighting the issues. There may be times when there is other information that you want. For example, how does another state deal with this particular proposal? And we can provide that information to you. There are many ways in which analysts help you facilitate that process of understanding the legislation that's before you and making informed decisions. And as Suzanne has said, and hopefully I have said at the beginning, we are nonpartisan. So the information that we give you isn't, this is a good idea or a bad idea. We take no position. We just try to give you objective, nonpartisan analysis to help you as you negotiate your way through understanding and deliberating on that legislation. We also, when you do ultimately vote on the bill, will draft your amendments. So if the committee as a whole or different people on the committee would like a different proposal, they want to tweak it a little bit, they want to say scrap that and start over, they like the proposal but maybe they'd want it altered a bit, we are the people that will draft those committee amendments for you. And then we ensure that they are processed through the fiscal office and the revisor's office to ultimately get to a floor for a vote. So that is another function. Those are the ways in which you'll see your analyst most, is helping you understand the bills and then processing your amendments. We also work with the leadership of the committee to schedule all these things. So whatever the committee leadership decides, we will help them schedule the public hearings and then determine when those work sessions will happen. So those are the primary functions of a committee analyst, is serving the committee. But we also do serve individual legislators. And again, if a legislator may have an idea for an amendment to a bill that's before a committee, but they haven't decided yet whether they want to introduce it, those things are confidential between the analyst and the committee member until the committee member wants that to be introduced. If you just have general questions or you want to understand something about the bill, you can always come to us. And all of our conversations, unless you tell us otherwise, are confidential. So we adhere to a strict policy of nonpartisanship and a strict policy of maintaining confidentiality in all of our discussions. So I think that the thing that I want to convey to you the most is that really committee analysts are here to serve you in this thing that is the majority of your work, and that is your work in committee. We want you to come to us as a resource for anything. We may not, there may be things that you come to us for that are not necessarily appropriate for us to address. Maybe those would be better handled by another office or by your partisan staff. But we will know where you can go for help. So if it's not something that we do, then we certainly can steer you to a resource that will help you. So we really, if you hear nothing else from me today, it's to use us as a resource. That's what we're here for. We really want to help you, and we like getting the calls, we like getting the visits. So we really want to help you, particularly when you're sort of just figuring all this out as new members. And before I turn it over to Director Nolan from the Fiscal Office, I did want to speak to you briefly about another office within the nonpartisan staff, and that is the Office of OPEGA, and that stands for the Office of Program Evaluation and Government Accountability. And they serve a committee of the legislature as well, but it's not technically a policy committee, it's the Government Oversight Committee. And the staff of OPEGA will be a little bit less visible to you. They're not really involved in the production of legislation or the processing of legislation, but rather at the direction of the Government Oversight Committee, they do more in-depth program evaluation and investigation reports. But I did want to just let you know that there is another nonpartisan office that you won't be necessarily seeing here today. And like OPLA, the Office of Policy and Legal Analysis, which is where your committee analysts are, OPEGA is also located in the Cross Office building. So that's the building that's right through the tunnel from the State House. So it's connected to the State House by way of the tunnel. So again, remember, reach out to your analyst. Again, most are here in OPLA with my office, but there are two that work for the Office of Fiscal and Program Review. And again, those are the analysts for the Taxation and the Appropriations Committee. And that is, those are staffed by, again, OFPR. And I'll turn it over to Chris Nolan, the director of that office, and he can speak to you about how that office is a resource to you. And maybe we'll break for questions, I guess, before we turn it over to Chris. Okay, thanks.
I just wanted to say that someone had wanted to know what the definition of the revisor's office is. And I didn't know when that was going to come into play.
I'll let Suzanne answer that.
The revisor's office is a great office. Until a week ago, I was the revisor of statutes. I worked in the revisor's office for over 30 years. And the revisor's office is, it's a funny name. And it makes you think about someone wearing a green eye shade and having a quill pen or something. But that's, the revisor's office is the central production office of the legislature. The revisor's office is responsible for drafting just about all of the bills, almost all the bills, all of the floor amendments, and producing all the committee amendments. The revisor's office is, it's the beginning and the end. It's where you will go when you have a bill idea. It's where you will go virtually, perhaps, to file your bill requests. They do intake on your bill requests. They follow up with you on your bill requests. The revisor's office drafts the bills. They enforce the joint rules about the deadlines and how many days you have for this, that, and the other thing. So you'll get notices that people will soon learn to call, as everyone does. They call them nastygrams, but they're not nasty. They're very, very polite and gentle reminders is really what we think of them as. And then the revisor's office is also the office that, after the committee has reported out amendments, we review, produce, edit, help with all of that. Then we do the floor amendments. And then when these documents go up to the floor, and some of them are adopted, passed to be engrossed. So you have a bill with an amendment and then 4 floor amendments. They send it back down to the revisor's office, and the revisor's office takes all of those things and smushes them together and then sends it back up to be enacted. And then after that, the revisor's office chapters the laws after they're signed or allowed to become law without signature. Then we update the statutes online, the database, and we publish the laws of Maine. Aren't you sorry you asked? That's the revisor's office. But they're wonderful, great, hardworking people. And like a lot of the nonpartisan staff, some of us have been here forever. So a lot of the people in the nonpartisan staff, whether it's in OPLA, OFPR, the revisor's office, the executive director's office, will be able to help you in terms of finding out where to go, who you need to speak to. Every single nonpartisan office will get questions that don't really pertain to us. But we've all been here so long that we know where you should go to find the information. So we are here to help.
I think I see another question, Mandy, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I
jumping
see
in.
a
It says-
follow-up for you, Suzanne.
Mhm.
It says how many people work in the revisor's office?
It's a funny office. So the revisor's office consists of the revisor, a deputy, and 2 staff attorneys. So 4 attorneys in the revisor's office, 2 paralegals, 14 editor proofreaders, and 5 technicians. So it's a big office compared to some of the other offices, but considering what it does, it's an incredibly small staff. And the way that the revisor's office is able to do what it does is we believe strongly in cross-training. So it's not unusual to hear the deputy director logging bills, answering the phone, and actually beginning to tech bills. So everyone is interchangeable, which doesn't sound good, but it really is. It's a good thing. We're interchangeable.
I'll take
I
that
have
other
another
question,
one,
Mandy.
Yep.
I can see, yeah, I can see it. So it says, if we are interested in program or policy evaluation for the purposes of informing or drafting a bill or amendment, is that OPLA or OPEGA? And primarily that's OPLA, particularly when it comes to amendments. Your initial bill requests will go through the revisor's office. Again, OPLA is always a resource. So even if you're you haven't submitted your bill draft yet to the revisor's office, you can reach out to us and we'll provide you with information. OPEGA does, they do big, broad, in-depth evaluations. And they do produce several reports a year, but in terms of an individual who is looking to propose a bill, draft a bill, or propose an amendment, primarily that's OPLA in terms of getting that sort of policy information or that guidance. The revisor's office does the initial drafting of the bill, but you can go to OPLA and we'll tell you what we can tell you, and then we'll send you to the revisor's office so you can formulate your idea and then they'll do the drafting. When it's in committee and you have an amendment, then your OPLA analyst. So you can go to either OPLA or Ross, and we'll tell you who best to serve you at that moment.
Another resource is the Law and Legislative Reference Library. Sometimes when a member has read in the news that, you know, 2 states have done something that interests that member, sometimes they will contact the Law and Legislative Reference Library to ask the library to get those states' laws. Sometimes they will ask the law library, is there a state that does X, Y, and Z? So even before you file your bill requests or your ideas, the Law and Legislative Reference Library can do a bunch of legwork to help you hone things and to help you focus in on which of the infinite possibilities you are interested in pursuing. So the Law and Legislative Reference Library is another nonpartisan office that is very helpful.
And the very helpful Jackie Little, our Human Resources Director, just posted a link in the chat that it's a resource for Maine's path of legislation. So that may help you sort of plot the points of how legislation goes through the process, and will give you an idea of who to reach out to at any of those particular points. So there's a link in the chat function for you to click on.
And I think that is in response to Representative Brenner's, I could use a flow chart. If there are no additional questions, maybe we can hear from Director Chris Nolan, the Director of the Office of Fiscal and Program Review.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Nolan. I'm the Director of the Office of Fiscal and Program Review, largely referred to as the Fiscal Office. Somewhere many years ago, we had a reorganization and all the offices were named with letters beginning with O. So sometimes OFPR and OPLA and Office of the Revisers gets a little bit confusing. We are generally referred to as the Fiscal Office. We are a group of 11 people. We are located in the State House on the 2nd floor, right next to the Appropriations Committee. I think at some point you're going to get a virtual tour of the State House and the Cross Office building. So I think our location and OPLA's location and the other office locations will be pointed out to you. Our office, as Danielle indicated, we do our analysts, we have analysts that do the functions the same as what OPLA does them, but for the Appropriation Committee and the Taxation Committee. So if you are lucky enough to be on the Appropriations Committee or the Taxations Committee, your legislative analyst, your nonpartisan legislative analyst will be from the Fiscal Office. For 2 other committees, Health Human Services Committee and the Transportations Committee, the primary staffing for those 2 committees are done by OPLA, but when it comes to considering the state budget, when you have work sessions and hearings on the state budget, the OFPR analysts will join you if you're on Health Human Services Committee or the Transportation Committee and assist you, staff you with those budget deliberations. For all other committees, you will see Fiscal Office analysts joining you or providing you information, or you can come talk to them in an appropriate manner, depending on the lay of the land and over the coming months. And the 2 areas that you primarily will be working with the Fiscal Office on are the governor's budget. First, there will be some kind of a supplemental budget in January. And then there'll be the big biennial budget, which usually kicks off in February. So when, by rule, the budget is, you will go to a hearing with the Appropriations Committee to hear the parts of your committee's programs that are in the budget, and then you will come back to your committee and work, get additional information and work the budget. The fiscal office OFPR analysts will be with the OPLA analysts to help you through that process. And then your committee will make recommendations to the Appropriations Committee on those items that are before your committee. So, so that's largely when you will see the fiscal office analysts, the 11 of us, is if you're on the Appropriations Committee or the Taxations Committee, when you're doing the Budget and the Health Human Services Committee or the Transportation Committee. And then we will assist the OPLA analysts for all the other committees when we are working, doing the budget process in January, and then the supplemental in January, and the biennial February on through usually till May or June on the biennial budget. The other area which I just want to point out where you will be coming and or talking to your to the fiscal office analyst that's assigned to your committee is the area of fiscal notes. By rule, the Office of Fiscal and Program Review is responsible for doing fiscal notes on bills. When the bill is drafted, we try to do a preliminary fiscal impact statement to give everyone an idea of what the costs are of a bill. And then as the bill goes through the process, the committee amendment will have a fiscal note attached to it with the costs of the bill. Every bill by rule has to have a fiscal note. That fiscal note may say that the bill has no fiscal impact. We consider that to still be a fiscal note saying it has no fiscal impact, but generally speaking, most people would say if it has no fiscal impact, then it has no fiscal note. But so every bill is required, every committee member is required to have a fiscal note by rule. And for the vast majority of bills, that fiscal note is no fiscal impact or only a minor cost that the agency can absorb within its existing budgeted resources. So, and that bill can go forward. Bills with fiscal notes have a separate track that before they can be finally enacted, they have to be, there's another level of approval, which is referred to as the appropriations table. But I don't think we want to get involved in all of that detail. I will point out that on the legislature's website, under the drop-down box of legislative offices, all of the offices that are presenting to you today have websites on there with information. And we have a couple of documents, one that lays out the budget process in great detail, the other which lays out the fiscal note process in great detail, which we update every 2 years. So those updated versions are on our website with links. And I think also we may have a link in a member resources page also on the website. So, so just to reiterate, our office replicates what OPLA does but for the Appropriations Committee and the Taxation Committee. And then mostly what we do for all the other committees are, you will see us when you're considering budget proposals that affect your committee's programs. And then you will see us, and when I say you'll see us, you'll talk to us, communicate with us. However, when we do fiscal notes for bills that you may be proposing, and also as your committees move bills forward, the fiscal notes will be provided to your committees. And if you feel the need to have us come give you additional information, etc., that's what we do. So That's all I really had to cover what the fiscal office does. And again, we're located on the second floor of the State House, right next to the Appropriations Committee. I look forward to welcome, and I look forward to seeing you all over the coming weeks and months. Do I have any questions?
I don't see any questions so far.
Great. Two quick things. One is I referred incorrectly to Stacy Brenner as Representative-elect Brenner, and in fact, it is Senator-elect Brenner, and I apologize. And then the other question that someone raised was if analysts are assigned to specific committees, if a member has an idea, but they don't know what committee the resulting idea would end up in. And I think that goes back to what Danielle was saying. Probably the best thing to do is bill requests start in the revisor's office. So if you don't know where something would end up, and there are many good reasons why you don't know. Sometimes we don't know where things end up. Bills are referred to specific committees. The clerk of the House and the secretary of the Senate suggest reference. And so sometimes when we index bills, we think, oh, well, this will probably go to X. And we might be surprised that it goes to Y. So the best thing to do would be is if you have an idea and you're not sure of where it would go, best thing to do is to start in the revisor's office anyway. And if it's something that someone in the revisor's office thinks, oh, wait a minute, I think the committee on blankety blank took up something like this a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago. The person in the revisor's office might say, you're going to want to talk to Danielle Fox on this, or you're going to want to talk to a specific analyst, or you're going to want to talk to Julie Jones up in OFPR. That's the benefit of having people who've been here forever, because really the revisor's office may not be where you want to be, but they will know. Likewise with OFPR and with OPLA, they will know. If you go in to file a bill in OPLA, likely they will say, this should start in the revisor's office. And for purposes of bill filing, tomorrow and the next day during the live portion, there is a whole segment on filing bills done by the deputy director of the revisor's office. So there will be an opportunity to ask some specific questions on bill filing and which doesn't mean that we can't take those questions now if you have some today. I don't know if anyone has any additional questions before we move on.
Suzanne,
Yes.
I just want to say one other thing is that while I focus, I guess in these kind of sessions, we try to focus on the specific things that we do just to introduce ourselves to you. I think the greatest thing we try to be is a resource for you to, and maybe you may start in the revisor's office or at OPLA, or if you have, fiscal questions as to whether if I do this bill, would it have a cost or what? We are here electronically and hopefully physically again to just talk through at any time that you need that kind of assistance. We are nonpartisan, which Danielle mentioned, and which we try to make sure that you understand. And we're also we're confidential in that when you have conversations with us, those are confidential conversations with us and our staff. So if you want to talk through anything, we are there to do that, whether it's the policy side, the legal side, or the fiscal side. So just as a general, that's where we spend a lot of our time on any given day, is just having those informal conversations as well. So just wanted to offer that up.
And if you don't mind, I'd want to add something to that, which is that you know, we are different offices, but we really do consider ourselves as a group, the nonpartisan staff, and we all work very closely together. We're in constant communication with each other, the analysts from the different offices. So just, you know, I know that we're presenting about the unique functions that we do, but really we consider ourselves as a whole to be a resource to you as the nonpartisan staff.
We do have another question. I think it's probably for Suzanne, going on the things you were talking about, the revisor's office. It asks if the same thing is true for submitting a concept bill.
So so a concept draft is something that is, I think, going to be at least touched on in tomorrow's presentation. Most bills are fully drafted bills with oftentimes statutory language and the whole idea drafted out. There is something called a concept draft, which is a sort of streamlined draft. And those are very useful for certain instances. So let's say you have a constituent who wants you to submit a bill to implement the recommendations of the town committee on blankety blank. And the problem is the town committee on blankety blank is not going to come up with its final recommendations for months. And at some point, there will be established a deadline for filing bills. So how could you possibly put in a full idea by X date if the bulk of it is not going to happen until 2 months after? That's a good reason to have a concept draft. What that is just a short bill that indicates what the intention is. And what that concept draft would be is this bill would implement the recommendations of the town committee on blankety blank. And in essence, that's what would go to committee. Once the town committee on blankety, that's what would get referred to the joint standing committee. And once the town committee on blankety blank came up with its recommendations, you would be able to provide that new information to the committee. So the same requirements regarding timing and filing and all that apply to all bill requests, including concept drafts. The difference is most bill requests, and you'll hear more about this tomorrow, most bill requests need to be filed with sufficient information given to the revisor's office so that they can draft a bill. A concept draft, since the draft is different, you don't have to give us all the details for us to draft a fully drafted bill, because that's not what the intention is, and that's not what will emerge. So I'm
We have
amazed.
another question for you.
Okay.
Let's see. It is, oops, I have to back up just a minute. Sorry about that.
Yep. Water District Standard Charter. Okay. So there's, if
I
there
think there
is
was one before that, but go for this one first.
Okay, if there is a Water District Standard Charter that needs to be amended, right, so that's a great example of a concept draft. If, let's say, the Water District is working on changes, your local water district is working on changes to its very own charter. Under normal circumstances, with water district charters, someone would come in and say, oh, we want to change the bonding authority from X to Y. We want to change the membership from A to B. Those are fully draftable. If the water district does not yet know what the exact changes are going to be, that would be a good reason to come in and file a concept draft. This bill would make changes to the charter of the water, the town of blankety blank water district, period, the end.
Okay, yeah, I have another one for you. Is this the same process or offices to find out further information if a department such as IF&W is having a hearing to establish a new rule, not a bill?
I can talk about that if you want. So there are agency rules. So those are those are sort of detailed administrative things that the agency does based on the law that the legislature passes. So there are two types of rules. There are major substantive rules that have a much more sort of visible process, and then there are routine technical rules. And yes, your OPLA analyst could help you. One, they'll tell you which type of rule it is and where it is in the process and whether or not there is a hearing on that. So if you're looking for information about rules, you can go directly to the agency, but your OPLA analyst would be able to help you with that with regard to where rules might be in the process. We have something called a regulatory agenda that we can access, and we can look at where rules might be in the process, and we also get notification of the major substantive rules. So yes, you can come to us for that. You can also get that information directly from the agency if you wish.
Next, we do have another question. Do bills that were held over following the March 2020 adjournment start from scratch in the 1/30th by going through the revisor's office?
Yes, they do. Bills that were held over from the March 2020 adjournment were held over to any special session that may have occurred. There was not a special session that occurred, so anything that was held over that a member is thinking that really would be a great thing to pursue in the 130th should be filed anew in the 130th through the revisor's office.
Thank you.
And then one more thing, and it's a great segue because we've been asked where we go to find the recordings of this particular meeting for future reference. And I believe that Casey Milligan, the manager of the Legislative Information Office, is going to include precisely that in her discussion of information resources. So Casey, if there are no more questions, you can go right ahead.
All right, excellent. Well, good morning, congratulations, and welcome. I'm Casey Milligan, manager of the Legislative Information Office. I am, in the essence of time, going to tweak my presentation just a little bit. I had a slideshow, but I will get it posted online, and I will show you where to find those resources. But I'm going to keep it a little bit more brief than I would have. Basically, the Legislative Information Office, also known as LIO, you will often hear us referred to as LIO, is a nonpartisan general information office. We serve both the legislature and the public. So we're often, if your constituents are looking for information, you can direct them to us and we'll help them track it down. But the other side of that is you are also welcome to stop by or call, and we can help you as well. So over the next few days, you are going to be receiving a lot of information. I don't expect that you will remember all of these things that I mentioned to you, but the takeaway here is, ask. We're here if and when you need us, and we'll definitely help you navigate. We'll help you navigate the website, or we'll help you navigate which office you need to be speaking to, but we are here to help you. So some of the services that our office directly provides is that we do provide information about the legislative process. We take a lot of phone calls from members of the public who are looking for information about how the process works. They want to know how they can be involved and participate in committees, and so we do field a lot of those. Probably the number one area where we take questions is we get a lot of phone calls about bill status. So members of the public and sometimes legislators too will contact us, and they'll want to know where in the process a bill might be. Is it still in committee? Has it been voted? What was the vote? Has it left committee? And so we can help kind of direct people. We can show them how to find the information online if they're looking to be able to find it themselves and follow it along, or we can just share information verbally. LIO works very, very closely with the committee clerks. The committee clerks will handle all of the clerical side of the committee work. The clerks do everything from keeping the files, which later become the historical record of what happens. They record the votes. They're the ones who will create the schedules and the notices that get posted to the web. And so all of the work that they do funnels through the Legislative Information Office, and we review the work that they do. They're not year-round employees, so they're what we call session only. And so I lost my place here, sorry. So we're going to verify all of the things that the information that they put together, their schedules. We'll just make sure everything looks correct, and then we'll make sure it all gets posted on the web. So schedules, notices, other committee documents, those things are available 24/7 with a couple clicks of a mouse. If you can't, for some reason, get in touch with your committee clerk or the committee clerk of another committee where you have questions, you are always welcome to check in with the Legislative Information Office, and we can access that same information for you. Another thing that we do is that we maintain a database of boards, commissions, and studies. So if you ever need a list of members, or maybe you want a list of vacancies on a particular board, commission, or study, that's something we can help you with too. We can print that off for you and provide that to you. Another important thing that we do is that the Legislative Information Office works closely with the Governor's Office on the gubernatorial nominations that require a hearing before committees. And so those nominations, the information trickles down to the LIO office, and then we work closely with the committee to make sure we coordinate a date and time that works with the nominee. We'll get all of the notices done. We'll get all of the newspaper advertising handled, and we'll make sure the committee members have all of the documents they need to make that happen. So if you ever have questions about gubernatorial nominations, this would be the office you would talk to. We do maintain a handful of directories. Probably the most useful one I will send you out in email form. Probably my guess is going to be close to January, and that's called the committee directory. And that's basically a who's who of in a committee. It will list the committee chairs. It will list who the committee clerks are, phone numbers for the committee clerk, as well as the OPLA and OFPR analysts are listed there as well. So you'll probably find that useful, and we do try to update it if there's any staffing changes. Another thing that we do here in the LIO office is that we can run custom reports, and we actually get quite a few requests for that. So sometimes somebody will say, can you give me a list of all of the bills referred to a specific committee? Or we sometimes will get requests such as, can you give me a list of all of the bills having to do with dogs? And so we can run queries, and we can provide the public information side of things. LIO is also the point of contact for all special accommodations. And this is probably one other thing that I would ask that you try to remember, is that if you have constituents and you know that they're going to need special accommodations, whether it's sign language interpreters, closed captioning, wheelchair access. I've had people reach out to me because they had food allergies and they wanted to make sure they were going to be able to find something in the cafeteria. I've had people reach out to me because they weren't quite sure where to park. And we do have a brochure, which I will get posted for you online. But this is the office, the Legislative Information Office is the office that handles special accommodations for visitors and members of the public, which is a little bit different than if you as legislators or staff members need special accommodations. Those all go through the Human Resources office. And last but not least, sort of a fun little thing that the Legislative Information Office does directly is that we get a lot of visitors from around the world, believe it or not. And so in our little foyer, we actually have a big map on the wall with pins, and you can see where we've had visitors from. We have a sign-in book, and we get a lot of questions about areas of points of interest in the area. Where should I go for lunch? And so we do a lot of that as well. So besides the information that we provide directly, there are the other information side of things is I want to point out to you that there's a lot of self-service resources available to you on the web. And these include things like calendars, both for what's going on in the building and individual committees. There's a lot of information about bills, such as the bill text. You can find the status at where it is in committee online. Sponsor and co-sponsor reports, which is one of the things I'm going to show you in just a minute, but that you'll probably find very useful. All of the notices for public hearings, work sessions, and confirmation hearings are posted online. Committee information, such as who the members of a specific committee are, how you get in contact with the committee clerk, And then there's also things like written testimony, with some exceptions. We're not allowed to post things that are copywritten, but there's that testimony will be online, archive recordings of committee meetings. You can find archived video of session meetings in the House and the Chamber. But there's a lot of information at your fingertips. And as Chris mentioned earlier, every office has its own kind of web page and special group. But you know, the committees all have their own pages. The House has its own pages. The Senate has its own pages. They're really, I could go on and on and on and on, but there's a lot of information online. So the main page to even begin to access all of this information is www.legislature.mainspelledout.gov. And from that one homepage, you can navigate to everything else. Let me just see if there's anything else I want to throw in here. So other really quick resources you can find, you can print off LDs from online. If it's a divided report, you can see who voted a specific way. There are links to statutes and chaptered laws. There's links to roll call reports. There's links to rulemaking information. And so much more. So really quick, I just want to jump over to the web and show you two things. And bear with me. I'm new to Zoom. And hopefully everybody can see the homepage here. So for your sponsor report, this is something that you're probably going to find very useful and helpful. So from this main page, if you scroll down, you'll see there's this thing called sponsor report. This lists all of the bills that you sponsor and co-sponsor. Very, very user-friendly. You're going to select your name, and this is still the 129, so this will be updated. Well, maybe it updated this morning. Let's see.
Casey, you might want to
And an
second
icon is
regular
invited.
session. There we go.
You can expand on all of the information. There are links to more information, but what we get most often for people are looking for something they can just print and take. And so that's the little print icon. But if you want to spend some time, you really can see a lot of the details. When legislative information updates what's happening in committees, we data enter all that. And as we data enter that, it does show up here as well. So that's one of the things you're going to probably find most useful. And then the second thing I want to show you as a takeaway from today, from this main page, there is this new section called member resources. And so a lot of the documents, I know there's videos that explain things. This is where I'll put have my PowerPoint put that I didn't go over today. I'll put the brochure for the special accommodations information. And so there's a lot of information here to kind of go along with all of the things you're going to learn this week. So I know I kind of rushed through that. I'm sorry in the essence of time, but if there are any questions, I can definitely answer them. But you are always more than welcome to stop by the Legislative Information Office, and the staff here is very friendly and very happy to assist.
And that member resources page is where the recording of this
Yes.
will be posted. I don't know if there are any additional questions.
I have a question that says, where is the LIO office?
Sorry, that actually was in my slide. The LIO office is just as you come in the main doors and you're facing security screening. We're actually before security screening on the right.
And that looks like that was all that I had for now.
Okay. We did go over a bit, so it probably makes sense to power through here. Nick Rendy is the director of the Information Technology Office, Legislative Information Technology, and he is going to take some time to talk to us about email and IT matters. And he's sharing his screen. Thanks, Nick.
Hang on. Share the right one. There we go. So you should see my slideshow and not my notes.
We see your notes.
Oh, great. All right, let's, Danielle helped me with this earlier today, and, so she
So
was.
it's Danielle's fault?
She was the acting director of IT. There we go. Okay.
For like 3 minutes. Yeah, there you go. You got it.
Okay, we'll get there. And I need to do that. There we go. Okay. Good afternoon. Good morning. Actually, we're not quite afternoon yet. My name, as Suzanne said, is Nick Rendy, and I'm the director of the Office of Legislative Information Technology. Our acronym is LI. Pardon me? Oh, I thought I heard somebody talking. I'm sorry. Our acronym is LIT, or IT, or anything that you'd like to call us. I've been with the legislature for a little over 22 years, but my history goes back to 1989 when I was an intern while at college at UMaine. The picture in the slideshow I actually took, that's my 1977 BMW motorcycle on the sidewalk in front of the State House on Thanksgiving morning in 2010. It was an absolutely beautiful day. We are in room 262, upstairs, the south end of the building, south end of the second floor. And for reference, if you're at all familiar, or if you happen to look at Google Maps view of the State House, the Blaine House is north, the museum is south, Capitol Park is east, and the Cross Office Building is west. Our staff supports, a staff of 11 supports the desktop environment, printers, phones, display boards, projectors, screens, chamber technology, web presence email, network infrastructure, wireless, building and room key card access, and more. Our staff office consists of a help desk, network and technical support, and software acquisition and development for the legislature. If you're ever in need, give the help desk a call at extension 1625 from any legislative office phone, or 287-1625 from the outside. I did not add, I should have, the help desk has an email. It's helpdesk, all one word, at legislature.maine.gov, and I will add that to the chat. Or if somebody could, that would be good. The Maine legislature is a bring your own device institution. We support mobile, Android, and Apple, as well as laptops, both PC and Mac. There is one exception. In preparing for a legislative session under the specter of a pandemic, the legislature has purchased Microsoft Surface tablets and voting software to facilitate sessions away from the State House while still maintaining the functionality of the investments in the chambers. You'll hear more about these devices at the pre-legislative conference. What do they all have in common? Wi-Fi. Our public service set identifier, in case you were ever wondering what SSID stood for, is Legis Air. We also have a secure private Wi-Fi called SH Legis. SH Legis is for legislators and staff only and is password protected. To ensure that we provide the fastest, most robust wireless to our own, we throttle the throughput of Legis Air, but not SH Legis. The password is not meant to be given out to friends, colleagues, lobbyists, or the executive branch. The more who use it, the slower it gets. That's what Legis Air is for. The executive branch has actually expanded their Wi-Fi presence in the State House, so they shouldn't need ours. You will find 30 Legis Air and SH Legis signals from 39 wireless access points throughout the State House, as well as the second floor of the Cross Office Building and the Cross Cafe. That is something new, was actually new earlier this year. But the signal isn't perfect, unfortunately, covering a 200-year-old granite building. It's an inexact science, and there are still occasional dead spots. They will often depend, however, on the device you're carrying. If you find you're not getting a good signal, turning your Wi-Fi off and on will usually cause it to connect to the nearest, strongest device. We do support wireless printing. We do support.
Get my door open.
Can somebody mute Chris, please?
Get some heat in.
We do support wireless printing. Fortunately, most of our printers aren't quite this old. There are 7 wireless printer locations. And while we don't encourage it, we know there are times when it's necessary. There are 2 in the House chamber. There's 1 in the Senate chamber. There's 1 in the cross office building, retiring room 205. That's the north hallway. There is 1 in the House clerk's retiring room on the 2nd floor of the State House. And there are 2 in the Appropriations Committee offices. That's on the 2nd floor of the State House. How do we do it? That's the good news. In the last 5 years, wireless printing for mobile devices has become much more ubiquitous, much more plug and play, much more the plug and play functionality that we're used to on laptop architecture. If your device is relatively new, you should expect that wireless printing can be enabled on it. It's worth noting that the asterisks are there because not all mobile devices are created equal, especially in the Android area. And we can't simply guarantee that it's going to work for everybody every time. Each printer needs to be set up individually for use. Reach out to your chamber system support folks for assistance. Those folks will become known to you during PLC. We do, well, most everybody arrives at the legislature with some sort of device, whether it's a laptop or a tablet or a mobile a phone. There is computer access. There are 3 retiring rooms on campus with PC and printer access. The cross office building, again, room 205. State House room 314, that's the one near the clerk's office, as well as room 420, that is on the 4th floor of the state office building in the south wing. It's worth noting that room 205 and room 420 are for your use only. They are key carded and keyed access, so members of the public can't come wandering in. The PCs in those rooms require a login and password to access our network. That information will be provided to you at the pre-legislative conference coming up in a couple weeks. A little interesting fact, Elwood Edwards recorded those words 31 years ago on a cassette deck in his living room after his wife, who worked for Quantum Computer Services, overheard Steve Case mentioning that he was thinking about adding voice clips to their upcoming AOL software. Next to Siri, who came 22 years later, those faithful words have worked their way into the lexicon of our time. You'll be provided a legislative email address in the format firstname.lastname@legislature.maine.gov. The first and last name is based on the name you used when you registered for the election with the Secretary of State. If we run into duplicates, they will be handled in an ad hoc fashion, and we may have to include a middle initial, perhaps a middle initial and the second letter of your middle name, depending again on the level of duplicates. This is the email address that will appear on all public-facing media. You can opt to provide us with a nickname you're commonly known by, but the duplicate problem, be aware the duplicate problem still may exist. If you choose to provide us with a nickname, that address will be in addition to the original one I just spoke about. So email sent to either one will arrive to you. You may also opt to allow your legislative aide access to your mailbox to read and respond on your behalf. This means that it looks like it's coming from you, just so you know. So if they have access and they're responding, it's looking like it comes from you. If you wish to indicate a nickname or grant your legislative aide access, please reach out to your caucus office, chief of staff, or the clerk or secretary if you don't have one, and let them know your wishes. They'll reach out to us. We have a number of automated email processes that send you messages based on the life cycle of bills being considered, and those processes will use your legislative account. Oops, sorry. Too far. Those will use your legislative account. Dang, what's going on? Sorry. Keep hitting the wrong button. As well, staff will send important information regarding pay, benefits, office closures, and more. It is extremely important that you manage your email, as it is an indispensable tool that will help you in your legislative life. Asking staff to use your personal internet account will ensure you miss important communications. We definitely don't want that. You can access your email from any browser on a device by going to webmail.mainelegislature.org. You'll be challenged to provide a login and a password each time. And as I said before, you will be provided with your login credentials at the pre-legislative conference. There are a number of mobile apps available if you choose to put one on your phone. Outlook, Gmail, iOS, and Outlook Web Access are the ones that we can support. There are others that might work, but unfortunately we can't support every possibility. There are also device operating system limitations that might affect your ability to use one of these depending on the age of your device. Instructions on how to access your legislative email via browsers or how to set one of the mobile apps up are available from the Member Resources Pay option on our homepage, legislature.maine.gov. Why use legislative email? I like Gmail, after all. One of the biggest problems we've had in the past is management of personal email accounts in our system, keeping track of them all. Whether it's an email inbox that gets spammed and filled up, or one that gets hacked and inactivated by the owner, the problem that we have is we don't find out about it until the owner stops getting emails and misses something that's important. Especially as more of our systems are sending out automated emails of schedules and notices. Other benefits of using our legislative email account: archiving. We archive every piece of email in and out of our system. Why? Freedom of Access Act. Good old Title I, Chapter 13, Subchapter 1. Maine's Freedom of Access Act was enacted by the 125th Legislature in 2011. I'm not going to go into what it is, as others will cover that during the pre-legislative conference. Suffice it to say, if you get one of these, you'll want to know that you can provide all of the information that it asks for. Why is it important to use your legislative account? It's archived. When an email is sent in or out, we archive it, and we archive it for an indefinite period of time. We don't set an expiration date on it. And our technology is intelligent enough to make storage space a non-issue. IT assists the Executive Director's Office in the archive search and response based on the criteria in the FOA request. Here, perception is everything. It's worth noting that deleting emails from your inbox does not delete them from our archive. We cannot more strongly recommend that all legislative email business be conducted using your legislative account. One of the biggest complaints we've had in the past is the sheer amount of outside email from lobbyists, constituents, and other public groups can overwhelm inboxes and often lead to the important stuff getting lost. Not that constituent email isn't important, but being able to find important HR, payroll, or tax information, or hearing notifications for bills you're sponsoring is just as critical. To that end, we've separated outside email from internal into different folders. Your regular inbox will contain all email from non-maine.gov email addresses. Right under your inbox, in the folder list, you'll see a folder called Underbar Ledge Mail. This folder contains email from only maine.gov email addresses. That means anything from a legislative account or the executive branch. And this is an example of how the folders appear in Outlook Web Access or webmail in a browser. On the left is a typical Outlook Web Access mailbox, and the right is from a device, a mobile device running the Outlook app. So a quick review. As mentioned earlier, all legislative email in and out is archived for an indefinite period of time. Use your legislative email. If you wish, your legislative aide can be granted access to your email as well. Does anybody else think it's unfair that junk email has been equated with this delicious staple? Detecting and filtering detecting and filtering spam email is like covering a 200-year-old granite building with Wi-Fi. It's an inexact science. Too lenient and too much gets through, too strict, and legislative emails get flagged. Despite all of the resources available, some still gets through. We ask that if you feel compelled to report it, you compose a new email to report.spam@legislature.maine.gov, attach the offending email to it, and we will take a look and try to teach our spam filters to know a little bit more about how to filter out the trash you're getting. Personal mobile devices and social media. Texting, social media, it's all considered public record and therefore is subject to the Freedom of Access Act. Just because you use your phone's texting app to communicate does not make it private according to the letter of the law. Remember, perception, perception, perception. And that is the end of my presentation. So I will stop.
We do have a question for you, Nick.
Yep.
Someone would like to know when they're getting their email accounts.
That information will be provided at the pre-legislative conference, which is coming up the end of this month.
Okay, well, if there are no other questions for Nick, our last presenter this morning is the Chief of Capitol Police, Russ Govan. He's going to provide us with some helpful information regarding parking and security.
Can I just cut in just for a second, Suzanne?
Sure, absolutely, yes.
We had a last minute question come in for Nick. It asks whether legislative emails and calendars work with Gmail and Google tools, or do we need to use Microsoft?
It used to. I'd like to say yes, it does, but it does not. And I'm trying to remember if with the Gmail app, it does not sync with your Outlook calendar. As I said, it used to, and it was very handy. Google decided they didn't want to do that anymore. So that does not, unfortunately, that does not sync. If you choose to use an app, not Outlook, if you choose to use the Gmail app or the iOS app, you can add your legislative account to your Gmail app or to the iOS app, and it will appear just as if you had a different email account. All the emails will be kept separate, and they will, and you will only see them if you want to see them. I have 2 or 3 Gmail accounts. One that I use to sign up when I know they're going to send me spam, and I just ignore it. But they are all attached to my Gmail app, so I can go in and I can pick which one I want to see the email from. Unfortunately, the calendars do not work that way, and that's a limitation that Gmail has decided they're going to use. I don't understand about not texting or using social media. The issue really regarding that, and I believe the Attorney General will cover that perhaps a little bit more when they talk about about the Freedom of Access Act. But
I just want to just clarify. I don't think what Nick is saying is that you cannot text or use social media.
true, that is exactly what I am not saying. You can text and use social media. What I should have said was, please don't conduct legislative business over social media, because any of that is FOA-able. And so if something gets up, you're going to be the one responsible for trying to recover that information, whether it's a text thread that you deleted or a social media thread that got deleted somehow. Those are things that could show up and be subject to a FOA request. So yes, you can use social media. Yes, you can text. Please don't conduct legislative business by social media. Is there a way we can forward legislative email to an existing Gmail account? It is technically possible, but we don't do it, and we don't do it for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is that when that happens, that means that you're reading that email as in your Gmail account, and if you respond to it, you have to. It makes responding more difficult. And if you respond directly from your Gmail account, it does not come through our archiving system, so that information is not archived. As well, if you never use, if you never look at your email, your legislative email, either through a browser or using an app, you'll never delete it, so it keeps building up over time. And that becomes a bit of a management nightmare on the back end for us. So we ask that you do manage your email either through the Outlook app or Gmail or iOS Mail, or you can also log in using a browser and use the webmail.mainelegislature.org, which is again part of my slideshow, which will be published out on the member resources page.
So if there are no additional questions for Nick, I think I apologize, Chief Govan. We have gone beyond when we should have, but so you may want to do what Casey did, which is kind of tighten up your remarks, but your presentation will be posted on the member resources page for people to go back to reference. So, and with that, Chief Govan.
Thank you. Yeah, I will try to abbreviate as much as I can. There is some important points I think that everyone needs to hear. Capitol Police First Office, a law enforcement agency. We're part of the Department of Public Safety. We have a presence whenever the State House is open. We have a police officer at the kiosk. We are also responsible for running the security screening operation in the State House, also whenever the State House is open. Our officers also patrol about 60 different properties in Augusta, state-owned or controlled properties. We have a 24-hour presence at Riverview Psychiatric Center, and we have watch persons that help us patrol the properties at night to make sure everything is secure. I have with me today Lieutenant Elliott, and I think if he speaks, you'll be able to see him. He is the number 2 in charge here at Capitol Police, and he's primary he oversees the screening operation. He's responsible for security of the State House and any investigations and threats or anything involving the legislature. So I wanted him to be here so everybody could at least see his face. You there, Bob?
I am here.
Okay. Did that work? Did everybody get a chance to see him? You'll get to know him more. You'll see him in the State House. Anytime the State House is open, as I said, we run screening. It's been all public must come in and out the west doors. Your cards will allow you access to the other doors. However, you have to be careful that nobody piggybacks with you, okay? That allows you and only you access. You should close the door, or at least have another legislator even that's with you card if they approach the door at the same time, so that is a record of who's entering the doors. The west doors of the State House, the doors that are between the State House and Cross, are the ones that are open to the public. They're open from 7:30 to 5 p.m. They remain open if the legislature goes late. So if you're working in the evening or if there's committee going on, those doors will remain open. The same for the Cross building. If there's a hearing going on in the Cross building on the second floor, the east and west doors there will remain unlocked. Your cards will get you access 24 hours a day to either building and to other areas within those buildings that you should have access to. If your card doesn't work, then it's an area that is not intended for legislators to have access to, for example, the governor's office, or certain committee rooms. Obviously, the committees have access, but other people may not, like the committee chair's office. So the access cards are controlled. Let me quickly pop up my screen here and can you see it now? Okay, I will go down through quickly. So the doors, whenever the committee's open, as I said, the doors will be unlocked. Your access cards, like I said, will work 24 hours for the areas that you're allowed to have access to. Weapons are prohibited. They have been since 1988, weapons of any kind in the State House. We started screening at the direction of the Legislative Council back in 2010. Legislators, you folks, staff, and certain other employees or all other employees of the legislative branch and some executive employees can bypass screening by carding. There's a lane where you can card to bypass screening. That does not mean you can bring weapons into the building. It is illegal to possess weapons in the building unless you are a law enforcement officer. You can bypass screening so we don't have to check all your stuff, and you can kind of do the quick route. That doesn't change the rule, though, prohibiting weapons. Anybody with you would have to go through screening. So if you have family with you, they would have to go through screening, or friends or constituents, whatever. You can card in, but that does not grant permission to other people. In order to keep weapons out, everybody has to go through screening.
If I could just add something, Chief.
Go ahead.
If you forget your access card on any given day, you will be required to go through screening. It's nothing personal. It's just a way for us to be able to say that anybody who does not have an access card, to allow them to use that fast lane, is screened. Remember your card.
Quickly, I won't get into a lot of detail, but there are all kinds of bells ringing in the State House when you're in there. There's the Senate bell, which rings continuously. It's a continually ringing bell. That's calling the Senate into the chamber. The House bell is intermittent. It'll ring. It's a different sound. That's calling the House members into the House. Not to be confused with fire alarms and strobes. Okay, it's obvious it's a fire alarm and there's strobes throughout the building that go off at the same time. If that happens, then plan to evacuate. Do not use the elevators. Expect the connector doors. There's doors that are held open with magnets. They will close. Some are glass, some are metal. They will close. What you should do is, if you're the last person out of a room, close the door and then follow the evacuation path, which is listed in every single room. There are fire wardens who will be wearing a yellow vest and help direct you out, and they will help people if they have a disability. They will meet them at the top of stairs and help them exit the building. Quickly, we have about 200 security cameras on the 2 campuses. They record video. They do not record audio. We monitor them at the kiosk where the police officer is. We monitor them in building control, which is our dispatch center. We monitor them in my office as well in a couple of different locations. So those are available. We do record them and we do use them for investigative purposes. It's also a live feed. So if we have an active event going on that we're concerned about, we can track the movement of people and deal with the incident that's going on. You want to talk about parking real quick, Bob?
Sure. There are three parking. There are a lot of parking lots, but there are three that are really designated for the legislature. And those parking lots, on the days when you're not in or you're not working, we have signs that we can flip. So on days when the legislature is going to be in, those spaces will be reserved for you. On days when we have limited use, such as only a couple of committees, we may only reserve like one part of Lot C for enough people that are anticipated to use those for that day. Within those legislatively controlled lots, A, B, and C, we call them, there are some handicap spots or disability spots which are available for legislators only. So if you're a legislator who has a need for disability, that's near where the cursor is being shown there in C lot. There's also some limited disability spaces in F lot that is not just legislators to use, but F lot South, we call it, between the Cross Building and the State House. So usually when the entire legislature is going to be in, we reserve all three of those lots, all of A, all of B, and all of C for legislative parking. However, you have to pay attention to the signs because the signs do change. So if you have a sign there that says general parking, anybody can park there, okay? This is a picture of A lot looking from the south side of the State House down toward Hollowell. It's on the south side of the State House, that's A lot. Down below that, behind the Law Enforcement Museum, Law Enforcement Memorial, between the Law Enforcement Memorial and the Cultural Building is B lot. That's the furthest away. So if you're a legislator who arrives late, that's probably where you're going to park, is B lot. And then C lot is directly to the south of the Cross Building. So that area there, those 3 or 4 lanes there can be reserved for legislators. So always check those signs. The next thing is to remember that those lots are reserved for people who are displaying a legislative placard or plate. Legislative plates are issued out to new legislators. If you don't want a legislative plate, the clerk of the House's office can give you a placard for your windshield in lieu of that, or you can do both. So our officers are not mind readers, okay? We don't expect them to run plates and to look up and see whether you're a legislator or to come and find you and tell you you're parked illegally. What they do is they look for that plate or that placard. If they can't find it on your vehicle, reasonably displayed, then they're going to give you a ticket, okay? If you get one of those tickets, come to the office, show us that you're a legislator, and we're going to give you a warning, okay? We're not going to do that over and over and over because we do want you to display your placard or your plate to make it easier on our officers. And that's really to make sure that when you arrive, your spaces are available for you to use. Nobody else is parking there. So we do enforcement there to make sure that anybody that doesn't have a plate or placard gets a ticket. And that way your places will be available for you when you get to work. So there are some reserved spots, which are for leadership, constitutional officers, and certain commissioners in the executive branch. Those are by permit only and are closer to the State House. If you do not have a permit, do not park in those spots, park out in the general legislative parking area. Or you will get a ticket because, those spots are reserved for people displaying those numbered permits. The legislative placards and plates aren't numbered. They're just for any legislator. So, we'll try to make sure that there's ample parking available for when you arrive. However, it's going to be just about enough. We have just about enough parking for you. So if you choose to park in a 2-hour instead of parking legislator and you're there for more than 2 hours and you get a ticket, you'll be expected to pay it like anybody else that comes to state property. So that's about what I have about parking. We do enforcement. We try to do it. It's not a lot of money if you get a ticket, but we do it the same for everybody. Legislators, everybody. If you get a ticket, you'll be expected to pay it.
Thank you. So I only think I have 2 slides left. I'm trying to wrap it up, but Please seek assistance from Capitol Police. If you run into people that are bothering, we're here to make sure everybody has a good experience here, everybody stays safe. If you see unattended briefcases or suspicious packages, that kind of thing, let us know. We'll investigate it. We don't have as much of that now that we do screening, but still sometimes things will just show up somewhere and it doesn't look right, so let us know. If you're dealing with a controversial bill and you're getting a lot of mail and disgruntled people over it, it never hurts to let us know that this is something that's coming up. We'll start watching it to see if we get intelligence on problems developing. There may be protesters. We get a lot of protesters here. They have a right to be heard. As a matter of fact, the Constitution of Maine says that they should come to the State House, and that's where they are to instruct their legislators. That's right in the Article 1, I believe, of the Constitution. Anyway, so we do have those. In general, we have very few problems with them. But they will be here expressing their opinion on things. If it gets dangerous or out of hand, then that's what we deal with. But generally speaking, they're here, they want to be heard, and we don't have problems. If you receive threats, either by phone, mail, or email, let us know. We will investigate those. You'll get a lot of non-threatening mail that's just bizarre is probably the best way to put it. We don't need to know about all that. Once your email gets out there, you'll get a lot of stuff and you'll recognize it. It's kind of like getting an old letter where people would write around the outside edges. As soon as you open it, you know it's probably not going to be making a lot of sense. However, if there are any that are actual threatening, let us know. And again, let us know even if you just get a lot of volume on one particular topic. It doesn't hurt to let us know, and we'll start watching that to make sure it doesn't develop into any kind of real big problem. You can go to the kiosk with questions or concerns. There's an officer there. Do not go to them for anything urgent. They're not allowed to leave that area. They're protecting the screeners. So call, which I think is my next one. Oh, quickly, there are alarm buttons in each of the committee rooms. The committee chairs will be instructed on that, but they are available. You'll see blue lights throughout the parking lots. Those are code blue boxes that you can talk with our dispatcher by pushing a button. It sets off an alarm inside to the dispatcher, and we will get assistance to you there. You'll see them all through the campuses. So the numbers, in any emergency, you can always call 911. The phone call actually goes to an answering center in Holton, I believe now. Doesn't matter. They'll get the right law enforcement agency on the way to help you if you need to. Now 911. You can use the code blue boxes. Again, it goes to our dispatch center, the building control, and they'll send a police officer. You can call 287-HELP, which is 4357. That's our office. It doesn't have to be emergency. You can use that for anything from legislative areas. It's just HELP 4357. You can contact us by calling that number. We're in room 111 of the Cross building, the end of the first floor closest to the cultural building. That's our general email. If you're going to send something to us, please use that general email address. That way it goes to all sworn police officers, so whoever happens to be working is most likely to see it. If they're in a cruiser at night, they're not going to see the email right off. But if you send it to capitalpolice@maine.gov, all one word, capitalpolice@maine.gov, then it will get to a law enforcement officer and we'll deal with it. If it's something urgent or you need a response, just call the office and we'll have an officer see you or at least talk with you on the phone. So that is a quick nutshell of our presentation. And I'm sorry we went over a few minutes, but I tried to cut it down.
Chief Govan, that was incredible. And Lieutenant Elliott, thank you so much. I apologize that we took so long, and I am incredibly impressed that you managed to provide all that information in that.
I just want to tell all the new members, you'll get to see the screeners and the officers rotating through the State House regularly. don't hesitate to ask them questions. Don't hesitate to stop here with any concerns. We're here to support you. We work closely with your local sheriff or trooper or your local department. If you start getting bothered by anybody, we coordinate those efforts to make sure that you stay safe too. And we're here to help you.
One last thing from my perspective is we're very fortunate. We have a seasoned crew of officers. We're lucky to have 2 former chiefs, 2 former deputy chiefs, former captain, some really good guys with a lot of experience who really care about what they do at the Capitol. So you will see them stepping into your committee rooms, being seen. We like to show the blue a lot, and that keeps our problems down. Everybody knows that there's a police presence there, and it really helps us with managing everything to do with people that come to the legislature. So we look forward to working with you, and welcome.
Thank you, Lieutenant. So I don't know if there are more questions for anybody. I do want to just say that a lot of our presenters have indicated that things are on the north side, the south side, the east side, down in the Cross Building and all that. And it is tricky because, of course, this is virtual. So we are working on a tour that hopefully will be posted to the member resources page, which is where you'll find all this information. We had the deputy director of one of the offices conducted a tour that was filmed and went to all the offices, which is what we usually actually in real life do during new member orientation. So hopefully this will help put some sort of visual to what everyone has been talking about. The other thing is that, as you know, tomorrow and Thursday, the presentations are going to be on site, in person. And I described how they were going to be. They're going to be up in the House chamber and assigned seats, and we'll come to you. The agenda for tomorrow, in case you don't have it in front of you, is that the Speaker and the President will welcome you. So they'll come in and welcome you, and then they'll leave, and then the clerk and the secretary will come in and just talk a little bit about how the chamber document systems work. And then there will be an 45-minute presentation on the basics on bills, filing, legislation, and deadlines. And that will be done by the Deputy Director of the Revisor's Office. And then perhaps the most important part is there are, on that member resources page that everyone keeps mentioning, there are videos, voiceover PowerPoints, forms, lots of information regarding compensation, benefits, reimbursement, vouchers, things like that. The hope is that if you take a peek at those slides, videos, etc., hopefully those will answer a lot of your questions. They won't answer all your questions. When you come in tomorrow, or the next day, whichever group you're in, from 10:30 to 11:30, the Human Resources Director, the person who does payroll, and the Legislative Finance Director will all be there to answer all of your questions on compensation and benefits. So if you dip your toe into the area by looking at the information on the member resources page, it will help you focus your questions. And we're also, I think, going to be taking your photograph when you come to visit us either tomorrow or the next day. We'll be taking the photo that will be placed on your access card. So what else do we have?
I think we have a raised hand, Suzanne.
Okay.
Is it Representative Moriarty?
He's muted. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it.
Okay, go ahead. You're still
Hey,
muted.
Representative Moriarty, did you have a question?
He's muted though.
Yeah, I can't unmute him.
All right, there we go. There we
Okay.
go.
All right, my question is for the chief. Does the weapons policy pertain to the Cross office building? And if so, how is it enforced where there's no comparable security station?
Uh-oh.
Yes, it does. It applies to all state property in the city of Augusta. As I said, the rule was promulgated at least 1988, probably before that. That was the first record I saw of it. So weapons are prohibited. We don't screen here. We entertain that. The layout of the building makes it very difficult, but we visually inspect people. All my officers are trained to recognize people that are carrying weapons. There's a lot of research and training that goes into that, from the Secret Service to all kinds of other agencies that do that. So we do take those kinds of efforts, but we do not screen in the cross building. Not at this
And-
time.
Okay. And just a quick follow-up. How about the situation where someone has a permit for a concealed weapon?
They're still not allowed to carry it on state property. However, there is an exception in the in statute that allows somebody with a permit to store it in their vehicle, even on state ground. So if they park, I suggest putting it away before you get here so it's not obvious, but locking it out of sight. It has to be locked, it has to be out of sight, then it can be stored while you're in the building. And that applies to anybody who works here. It does not apply to the general public. General
Okay, thank
public,
you.
we ask them to leave our grounds if we know about it, but if somebody puts one in the trunk, we're not going to know, obviously.
So does open carry apply to state grounds?
It does not. You can carry on the sidewalk. They have this at protests all the time. We'll have somebody open carrying on the sidewalk, but state ground has its own rules. So you cannot carry at all on state property. And it's not just firearms. I mean, that's the one we're most concerned about, but anything that's a weapon. You can't walk on with a sword either.
Okay, good. It's good to clarify that there's no distinction between the buildings and the grounds.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a comment, Suzanne. Reminder to bring documents tomorrow or Thursday, such as marriage certificates.
So the information that was sent out in an email, perhaps, to the new members regarding filling out their paperwork, to the extent that the email, and this is from, is it Representative-elect Thorne?
Yes.
Yes. So to the extent that there were emails sent out to the members, new members, asking them to bring any kind of identification, to fill out some of the paperwork, to fill out beneficiary information, to provide signatures on things, I would do whatever the email says, and I will try to get a copy of the email so I can see what it said. So. Any other questions?
That's all we have in chat for right now.
Okay. Mandy, thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you help me.
No problem. Thank you so much, Suzanne.
If anyone has any additional questions, even after this is over, you can reach out and any one of us can help you. Even if it's not the person who has the answer, we will be able to help you find the person with the answer. We are here to help, and we would love to be whatever kind of resource you need us to be. So with that, I guess we're probably all done. Thank you so much. We can't wait to actually see you in person and meet you. And do let us know if there's anything we can help you with. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.